What's happening, people? Welcome back to episode 9 of the Don Diaries. Today we've got a very special guest in. I'm absolutely buzzing to have him in and talk to him. We've got Reece Donnelly in. Thanks for coming in, bro. Appreciate it.
Hello, how are we, team? Nice to be here.
I'm very good. Bit tired, so are you. But this is a grind mindset that you're in.
Honestly, if you could get a close-up in my eyes that looks Doug's balls right now, I'm so tired.
It's like you'd smoked a big bifter outside, man.
Listen, I was honestly, yesterday I was driving up the road. I got in last night from London about 12:30. Do you know what I mean? I'm driving along the motorway. I'm like, am I even open? But we're here, we're grateful, we're happy.
We're alive. There could be worse things happening too, as we were saying before the podcast. We've got food, we've got a roof over our heads.
Exactly.
We've got
food in our fridge, we've got a roof over our head, and we're here to talk shite.
That's it. That's the main thing. Let's do it, man. I love talking shite. That's why I started this. So, Reece, I kind of spoke to you about what the podcast is about, almost like a kind of journey through your life, you know, things that you've went through, things you've got going on just now, what the future's looking like. So let's go right back to the beginning. I was doing my research, you know, the Don does his research into all his guests. You've been into acting pretty much for as long as you can remember, since about, what, 5-6 years old, is that correct?
So yeah, I always say this, but I lived a pretty normal life growing up, come from like what most of us come from, a Bronx area of Glasgow. So I come from Cambuslang, and I just think that like I loved growing up. I loved being a wee though. Like,
is that quite schemy, Cambuslang? I don't actually.
Aye.
Is it? I thought Cambuslang was posh.
I mean, there is a new part now,
right,
but certainly
okay.
Like back in the glory days, I mean, your days were spent basically bamming people up.
Yeah.
Like my neighbours, everybody else around about. So, lived there, and pretty early on I was very lucky that I got an acting job. I don't know if I've ever told him this, but how I basically got into acting is I went to school, very normal school, where you get made to do some like Bridgeton Burns competition where everybody basically had to do like this awful Robert Burns poem. So for a guy that loves to talk and still loved to talk when I was about 6-year-old, basically ended up doing this, won this competition, and then did a show in the Hilton when I was like 7. And there was an agent, like years ago, being a talent agent used to be like, wasn't really a thing as what it is now. You know, everybody's an agent or an influencer agent or something new without no any paperwork to back it up. So years ago I met this woman who was a children's talent agent. She was like, why don't you come to my classes? And I was like, no, that's fucking mortifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely not going to an acting class. Fast forward a couple of months and I'd been there, and then I joined a kids show on CBBC about 7 years old. So
what was that show?
It was called Carrie and David's Pop Shop. So
right, okay.
It was mortifying, to tell you the truth.
Why?
I used to basically go into the pop shop, give my story of why I was having a shit date, and they would make me a song. So after that, then kind of went back to school like a normal wee guy, and I was like, sack this, I want to be a lawyer. I know what I want. Chose all my subjects to be a lawyer. And then I was like, nah, I mean, it's not really for me. I don't know how long this is going to fulfill me for. So I went back to drama classes, and then a TV show moved to Scotland called Waterloo Road.
Yes! I was buzzing to ask you about this, right? I've got no shame.
Did you love it?
Loved Waterloo Road. Genuinely, do you know what? I'm actually going to try and find a picture of see when they moved to Greenock, I think it was.
That's what I found.
Oh, what it was, me and my mum actually drove through there just so I could get a picture outside the school, man.
Do you know
honestly,
the school gates
I
are
loved
still
it.
there?
I know. Oh yeah.
I've now got a school in Greenock, which is like proper full circle, but it's the same gates from when the show moved there. So Waterloo Road I used to watch when I was a wee guy, probably like you.
Loved
I remember pure, which is mental because now obviously we know her, but like I remember Chelsea Healy being like Janice, and she was like pure schemy running about the school. She was something I fancy fuck out of me. Unreal now. She's also got 2 kids, but she's still on
MILF. scheme one to the MILF, yes.
She's so cool as well, and I remember thinking like, fuck, I need a job here. So very quickly, I don't know how I was getting in the show, but I was like, I'm getting in that show. So I was 15, I auditioned, and I'll never forget the casting director was like, look, we think you're great, but you just don't have enough like on-set experience yet. So I went out there for probably about 9 months and just played like someone's friend. So like a bit of dialogue here and there, and then as the story kind of progressed, I ended up there for 18 months, which was just like mental. I was still at school, was filming Waterloo Road, and then I was like, okay, shit, I probably need to go and do something with this. So left school, went straight to drama school at 16. I was one of those arseholes at school that like you would look at something twice and I would get full marks for it. Like just one of the people that I now hate. But I was just like very naturally gifted with like academia, like no with maths, but like very English, very like drama. I could like read and write very well. So I left school in 5th year at 16 and went to drama school for 4 years. So I then went down to Sunderland to do another year, and then lo and behold, kind of just fell into this path of what it is now. And I'm really like,
fell into this crazy life.
I'm like, I see still do it. Some days I'm like, how the fuck did we end up here? Like, you know, you just like, we always say yes. But after drama school, I did like a few different jobs. So I had a great job where I went around the jails as like an actor, worked with the prisoners, put on shows. I did like a UK tour of a musical, which was terrible because I am the world's worst dancer. See all that shite pure. Can you set ball change? I'm like, no, I can stand here and somebody can dance around me. So, and then now, obviously, I kind of fill my days between still do a bit of acting, do a lot more TV presenting now, and then I opened the theatre school probably about a year and a half after graduating. So
cool.
Well, lots of fun.
Busy guy, man. Busy guy. We'll get on to everything a wee bit later down the line in the podcast. Going back a wee bit, see when you were at Waterloo Road, were you just going to like, I don't mean a normal school, but you just going to normal high. What did that, did you feel like fucking the boy?
Aye.
I was going to say, man.
Like, so somebody who then worked for me, Alana, who was like, she'll probably be listening to this, so if Alana, if you're listening, we're going to laugh at this story, but I just thought it was a wee ticket. I was like, here, I'm back.
See, to be fair, if I was 15 in Waterloo Road and I was coming in, I would feel like the boy.
I just remember saying things like, I just remember doing my exams, my teacher would be like, yeah, you missed your prelim. I was like, what about it?
Fuck
like,
it.
What about
Shut up and go and get my coffee.
I used to be like, you're like, what about it? But then, like, honestly, like, Waterloo Road, people, like, anybody that's done that show will know it is a graft. Like, we filmed 13-hour days. Like, for the age of 16, bearing in mind, people at 16's got a paper round. I was out shooting 13 and 14-hour days. I talk about this one episode because it's enough to make you fucking run a mile and know what to do this job again. But we shot this camping storyline, and I remember being like, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have this brilliant showreel where me and all my pals for the school have gone camping. And in actual fact, I was absolutely drenched for 9 days of the shoot. I was freezing. And I think that's when I started to realise that I like to work indoors.
Yeah.
So now when a shoot comes up, I'm like, how much outdoor shooting?
Yeah, no more outdoor scenes.
But it's like, we were literally freezing, and I'm like, you just need to do that until the shoot's done. So we did this big storyline where basically someone falls off the boat, but the amount of times we had to fall off the boat, get dried, go back in the water, it's like, nobody sees that mechanic behind it. But Waterloo Road literally is the paving stone for so many Scottish actors. Like, I am so grateful for the job on it. And I think if anything, it taught me that you need to shut up and work hard, because there was so many people on that show that came up from Manchester who were very much used to hopping in and doing a scene and hopping back out to doing another shoot. And like, everybody on that show worked like fuck. And I think it really paved the way for like so many of us to continue on working. But loved my time there. I think I grew up there. Like, we always laugh at that. My business partner at the agency I met there, she met her husband there. Like, all of my circle of pals, we all met on a TV set at 15. I'm like, it's fucking class.
It's fate. It's
so lucky. So yeah, I loved my time there and loved the people that we got to work with. So many of them now we're still so close with.
And I think that's really interesting what you said. This is why I was so interested to have you on, because I've always wondered like the mechanics behind like TV shows. I feel like you just watch them and think, oh, that was all done in half an hour or whatever. But it's interesting to see that, you know, you talked about the people coming from down south coming up and they were maybe a wee bit like that, go and get my coffee, I'm a star, etc. Whereas there is like another side to it where it is grafting.
Honestly, like, no actor, unless you are fucking James McAvoy, would still never request to get a coffee. And I think we still have this like, I probably get pandered to now as somebody that's been on a fucking Z-list show than what I used to get as an actor. Like, and I think that's where it's like, actors are so working class, like they are unreal. And I think that still, like, when I go and do a job, I say this to every student I teach, but the person who you speak to on that reception desk, to the person that does your makeup, to the person that fucking takes your makeup off, they are going to be a producer one day. So you just treat everybody and be a good person. There is so many arseholes that fuck it for themselves early on in their career. Like, we were talking about this yesterday. I was just saying this to you, but I was down doing a show yesterday and I'm watching someone on set and I'm like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't be that type of person. Like,
hey, what were they doing? As
just like where's my phone? Where's my whatever? I'm like, fucking put your phone in your pocket and know where your own phone is. So I think that like working and growing up on a show like that just teaches you to treat everybody with respect, but nobody understands that like the amount of hours that go into making a show.
I think it's it's interesting what you said like that, because with the kind of acting, I've always been somebody that's like really wanted to actually get into it. I remember did I not text you?
Messaged me like, "What, be an actor?" I was like, "Come and help you."
Honestly, I'm like and that isn't me like kind of saying, "Oh, I could go and be an actor." It's pish easy. I know that it wouldn't be, but I've always just had something where I was just watch people on TV genuinely like Waterloo Road. I used to watch that and I used to just want to be on that and things like River City and all that. Do you know I was actually mad with it and I text River City on Instagram and I was like that, "Hey, you needing an actor or something?" I woke up the next day and I'm like, why the fuck why would they would obviously not reply to me? But
do you know what's so funny, right? Like River City, I have always say is like an institution, right? So many of my pals work on the show, grow on the show, right? But we need to move to 2023, right? Like you probably see that everything in BBC is being cut, Holby City's been cut, Doctors is being cut. And I do believe that River City, with the right shake-up, could continue on. But it is like so many of these things are still like Deirdre Barlow stages where we're going and buying papers. Like, who the fuck in the street's going to buy a paper now and waving at your pal in the street? Like, we need to modernise these shows in order if they're going to survive.
Do you think modernising shows works all the time? Because I always think, see with Still Game, right? I fucking loved Still Game, and see the new seasons. I just thought they were shit because they were too modern of that. Like the cameras look too good quality, the makeup and all that. I don't know. I do
think that like, I think in order, this is probably me being like a bit more of like a TV wanker when I say this, right? But it's a bit mass, it's a bit money. So you need to know who's behind the audience. Like, I guarantee you that more people probably tuned into those episodes of Still Game, and you might have not have loved it, but the masses tuned in and paid for it, right? Yeah. And with these kind of shows that need modernised, like, I would say that, like, love it or hate it, it's a show that I would do. Hollyoaks is probably one of the most commercialised soaps. We understand what's going on in the world, maybe a bit too much, that, you know, everybody has a pronoun after their name and all of that. But, like, in all fairness, they're probably much more of a representation of the current world. But if you look at a show like even Corrie, I'm like, come on, how many people's going to sit in the Rovers? I know. How many people in this room are going to sit in the old man's pub on a Friday night? Yeah, no, I know, that's everybody's true. Doing it. Wonder Bar, but even I know.
Wonder Bar's took over, by the way, honestly.
I'm not into it. I hate to say it. It's like a fucking five-a-side football pitch. I'm like that. These people are like animals, honestly.
I think I like it, but I don't really go out that much, to be honest with you. I'm every now and then, but every night that I've had in there, it's been all right. I just hate nightclubs. I hate
this idea of like, you don't know who you're going to bump into. People are just irate when they've got 3 drinks in them. Yes. And I'm like, oh, this is like a breeding ground.
It is a bit. I was speaking to, so I had a girl called Bethany Dobson on yesterday in Manchester, and we were talking about this, and it's not to say, oh, you're mega famous or anything, but you do kind of walk about and you get maybe people looking at you, and I've always seen whenever I've been in Wonder Bar, this is not me being cocky or anything, but you get hounded like the whole night. I don't mind it. I don't care. I love talking to everybody, but it's just because people have got a drink in them, and it's like...
I wouldn't even say it's that for me. It's just like, I mean, I love Wonder Bar in the earlier days when it was that place up the stair. I went to like maybe about 9 weeks ago for one of our pals' birthdays, and I was like, this is like a fucking zoo. I was like,
it's mental, man.
I need to go. You know, I was
you
like,
can't move
with anxiety. I was like, I need to go up the road.
They must make
a cup of tea.
They must make a power, man.
I don't know if you know this, but you know, I used to run a club that used to be.
Is it Light?
So I used to run Light and Rumour, like in between having 5 other jobs. But that's the same venue. They've just flipped the venue.
Aye, so it's the downstairs bit. Is that what Light used to be?
Light and Rumour used to be. So we took it on when it was 212, turned it into Light, turned Light into Rumour, and then I moved on. But the guys that owned it is the reason why I've got a business. Like, I always say this, but I basically was given the keys to that club and told to run it and make it work at 18, 19, in between, like, having my own business, trying to be an actor, and they didn't live in the country, so I just used to text and be like, here, this is what we made this week, here's the profits, it'll be banked, and kind of have this for marketing spend. So, like, to now see Wonder Bar where it is, it's like, I mean, we were the OGs in that.
Yeah, the OGs.
I hate to say it. Maybe I'm not there anymore.
It's all down to you guys. It's all. I actually think
I loved it. I loved my days in the club.
I might make you feel a wee bit old here. I don't actually think I'm old enough
to. What age are you?
23.
I'm only 26.
All right, you're only 26. I don't remember.
People think I'm about 45.
Nah, you're not. I didn't think you were 45, man.
No,
yeah, but
I'm only 26.
So how did that nightclub thing come about? And like you said, you had the acting kind of things. How did it come about?
I'll actually tell you this story because I was still at school at the time and I worked in Top Man. and the manager came into Top Man, and I was like renowned for like, do you remember you used to go into shops and they would try and encourage you to open a store card? So
I worked at New Look. I was the goat at doing them, man.
So that was basically my job,
Yep.
right? So I worked for Top Man, Top Shop, Miss Selfridge, all of the Arcadia group, and they were basically like, at the weekends, Reece, we don't want you to be selling, we'll just get you to open store cards. So this guy came in who was buying a shirt for his work that night, and I was like, you interested to open a store card? Before, you know, I'd signed him up and he had a £250 credit allowance, and he was left, and he was like, what the fuck's going on here?
It was so shite looking back on it. I felt so guilty.
It's like, honestly, it's like, I don't know how it's legal.
Yeah, I know.
So he was like, oh, you should be a PR. That night, went for a trial shift, which is fucking ridiculous to think. I was also, I've said this so many things, but I was 17. Went for a trial shift at a nightclub. And honestly, within about 8 weeks, I think I was the marketing manager. And then from there, it just kind of grew arms and legs. And like, I love to get myself involved in every aspect of it. But I ended up there for like 4 years. So I don't think I left there till I was like 21. Mm-hmm. I was still there when I had the school originally. And then I just like slowly stepped back. Like I handed over like managing stuff. Then I just did their socials. Then I just did their influencers. Like, so I've had many a job over the years, but it was class. I loved it. I used to stand in the front door like a right wanker with an earpiece and a clipboard. Like, not tonight, pal.
You were one of those guys. Like, come on.
But no, I loved it. It was class.
Yeah. No, I'm yet to meet a sound bouncer as well, by the way.
I was so mad to be fair. Even the ones I used to work with, I'm like, come on.
Why are they all like that, man? It's like,
I think I always say, and I'm probably going to get into trouble for saying this, but I would say bouncers are probably were bully victims at school.
Oh, mate, I was literally just about to say that. Or like failed police or something.
Like, you know, he's definitely been a community police officer that's been told, unfortunately, you're not getting into the Strathclyde board. I wait to Royal Exchange Square and bully young boys on a Saturday night.
I just don't understand. It's like, see, when you're so on edge walking up to places because you're like, they're going to like get that away, then they're like grabbing the ID off you and pure inspecting it and all that. And you're like, bro, awful. Just chill out a wee bit, man. Do you know what I mean?
It's awful.
So let's go back then. So how come you left Light? Was it just kind of...
Well, we refurbed it from Light to Rumour, which was great. I did like all the marketing campaign for that. So we did like all the launch. But the guys that owned it lived in Belfast. So like there was a lot like on me and Alison, who I fucking love as well. So me and her were basically left to our own devices. Like she's like 3 years older than me. I'm fucking 21. Mm-hmm. Two of us have got a set of keys each and been told to fucking knock yourself out, which I think it got to the point where the reason why I left is I was offered what you call a big boy job. I went to this company which lasted about 9 months. It was absolutely diabolical. If anyone ever tells you to go and work a 9 to 5 corporate job, I would say run a fucking mile.
It's pish, bro. I've been there.
Tragic.
I've been there, man.
So I left like to go there, still did their socials, and then I opened the school. And I think like I'll come on and talk about this, but the school for me was literally just like, I feel like it opened and it took over my life within 5 minutes. So I didn't really have a lot of time of like, you know, trying to build it. So
it just kind of happened?
It was just like, honestly, it was so quick, like, and probably a bit too quick that we had to grow a bit quicker than what we needed to be. But we opened in the August, and within like, I think before the end of September, we had like 120 students, which is amazing. Like mental people like have got their schools for 15 years before they have that. So very quickly we were then trading 3 nights a week plus admin in the day. So it was a full-time job for me and one other. And then it just kind of grew arms and legs. So I decided to move on for the club. I'm still best of pals with the guys that own it. Like, good love stuff. Them.
Yeah, legends. Good stuff, man. So you said obviously the theatre kind of school moved quickly, but is that an idea that you've always had in your head that you wanted to do? Or was it just one of these? Because I'm very impulsive. I'll get an idea like the podcast 4 weeks ago. I'm like, fuck, I want to start a podcast. You know what I mean? I'm like that. So was it like that? Or
I think that like when you work in my industry, like you always need security, right? But I found it very frustrating. Like I worked in casting, I worked with kids, I worked as an actor that worked with kids, and with it sounding ridiculous, every child that was coming through the door was like these jazz hands Waynes that shouldn't exist anymore, right? Going to a drama school or going to a theatre school shouldn't just be for kids with money, and that's what frustrated me, right? Okay. It was all these like wee posh kids with jazz hands that wanted to wear, go and do ballet on a Saturday morning, and I was like, that's really not what this should be. It should be a bit like everyday kids that want to work in telly. So we only opened like acting for TV classes, and then very quickly David Walliams' production company phoned us, right. 4 weeks old. Hi, we're looking for a Scottish boy to be in Grandpa's Great Escape. And I was like, we are finding that child whether we need to go anywhere. We went around like schools, nurseries, and we found the child that played the part.
No way.
Louis, who's still one of my students now. And I think from there on, I was like, okay, we've got something that we could offer to kids that other people don't. And I always say in business, all you can do is find a product and make it available to the masses, right? Or you can find a problem and make it a solution. And that's exactly what we done. So there's always going to be theatre schools before me. There's always going to be dance schools, acting schools before me, but I am yet to find one that does what we do. So we specialise in TV, we specialise in giving the kids work and taking them by the hand and putting them on the telly. So there's a lot of these schools that are like, come act, sing, dance. They promote you to come for 3 hours and they're giving you confidence. I'm like, anyone that takes part in performing arts is going to get a sense of confidence. You're going to be asked to stand up. So very quickly, I was like, what's our niche and how do we grow it? So we opened one in Cambuslang, Glasgow North, and then we opened the city centre. And then I was like, sack this, I need to just buy a studio because I'm paying like these awful janitors to come in and pure shout at the girls that work for me for nothing. So we opened a studio and then very quickly just built it to kind of what it is now. And now we've got 3 sites. So we've got like Glasgow, Greenock, Edinburgh, and then we've got a college. So I feel like I just felt very in my element there and it just felt right. And I think when you know what you're good at something, you need to run with it. Like for the first time probably ever, I was like, I fucking don't really feel like I need to go and study too much of this. I had a degree. I had already had this almost like, I would say like an apprenticeship running Light and Rumour. So I was like, I've got the kind of business side. I know what I'm talking about in the acting side. And me and Katie, my business partner, had a children's talent agency. So I was like, all of this just kind of complements each other. Let's put it together. Yeah,
100%. I think, like you said, when you find something that you truly love and you're passionate about, you just need to go with it and just run with it as well.
Some days it is shit. I say this all the time. It's like yesterday, I was saying this to you just before we came on air, but I went to London yesterday, was like, right, I'm off the clock today. And before you know it, you land in London and it's like bang, bang, bang. She's no well, this one's no coming in tonight. And you're like, great. Okay, so it's just about sorting, like it's about mitigating like all of that.
Keeping everything in order.
Keeping everything in order and making sure that the customer is happy.
That's it, man. That's it. Now, I'm really interested to talk to you about the theatre as well. Again, not something that I really know too much about. Apart from I was actually on Pace, believe it or not.
Yep, not well.
I think I was...
I don't know well, I say that.
You know, I think I was in an elf in one of the Santas. Like,
is that your claim to fame?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I used to pure dig like that and the smile and stuff, man. I was brutal with it, man. But so with the theatres then, how kind of young are the kids that can come through the door? What's the kind of youngest kids? Yeah.
If they're potty trained, we'll take them, we always say. Right. So as young as 3, we've got 3 to 6 year olds that probably can make more money than their parents and when we send them out to work. Like,
that's crazy, but isn't
we've got these, I'm not going to give too much away here, so but we've got this people that we basically had in a massive high profile show which allowed both of their mum and dad to leave their job and like ultimately be in financial freedom because of a massive show that moved to the UK. So for us, I'm like, it's amazing. Okay, it's stressful. The kids are under so much pressure, but like ultimately I'm like, we are literally changing kids' life. Like there's kids that don't realise they're good. There's kids that don't realise their potential. And I think like, tell me another job where you get to go to your work and say to your kid, you're going on BBC the day. Yeah. It's just so rewarding. So we take them from as young as 3 and then like they would only be in for like an hour and a half a week. And then it kind of goes all the way through. So kind of like 10-year-olds would maybe be in like 5.5 hours a week. 12-year-olds over that would maybe be in anything up to kind of like 16 hours a week. And then I've now got a full-time college. So we do HNC, HND and degree level.
Amazing.
So they're in like 45 hours a week.
Can I ask you then, not a controversial question, but see these parents that are bringing in their kids that are like 3 years old, do you think it's like their dream that they want to live through their kids? Or, and that's not me trying to be a dick, it's just trying to like understand you.
We certainly get some mums that want to tell us that they did dancing when they were younger. Yeah. And, you know, I was a model and I'm like, right, I don't know where for, my friend, but we get all of that. But I think like ultimately we would probably say like, look, you know, they're actually not enjoying it as much as what we think. Right. We are a proper like school in that sense. Each child gets 3 report cards a year. So like my staff are like fully fledged teachers. They all have degrees. They all have teaching qualifications. And I think people think that we have kids coming in and doing duck, duck, goose. Like from the minute those kids arrive, like, okay, it's really fun. It's really inclusive at 3 years old, but they get 2 report cards a year. They do 2 productions a year. So it would be very hard for a child that didn't want to be there to slip through the net.
Yeah, that's why I asked that. That's really interesting, and it's good that you've got those kind of systems there in place almost as well, because I just thought, like, is there any 3-year-olds that are genuinely like, I want to go and be an actor? But that's really good though as well.
At that stage, it's not about that though. I think it's about like, can they, like, we're teaching them to talk, we're teaching them to sing, we're teaching them about music, we're teaching them to hear like beats. But and like, I used one wee girl as an example. I've taught this wee girl, I've not personally taught this wee girl, so I won't take the credit for that if you're listening. We've taught this wee girl Callie since she was 3. And I am telling you categorically that wee girl will be a professional singer on stages somewhere, because her ear is so in tune. Like, she can play piano, she hears the notes, she can sing, she can act, she can dance, and she's only turned 7. And I'm like,
it's crazy.
Like, because her ear is so fine tuned, she's literally grew up around a piano. Like, she's unreal. So if somebody comes to me at 10 and I'm trying to teach them about the note, or trying to teach them about, like, why can you not hear that? And they're like, because I only started last week. So I do think, like, the earlier you can get them in, persevere with it, they're not going to love every week. Like, it's so high energy when you come in that. People are going to have down weeks, but I do think the earlier you can get them in, the better it is for the child.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I like that you've got, like I said, those support systems, because it seems like there's, like, less kind of, like, pressure there, and it's almost like a second kind of school for them to go to, where they're learning sometimes even more. No, but generally, because I've spoke about schools and stuff, like, obviously maybe not primary schools, but I just feel like high school, there's a lot of kind of wasting your time in that. So actually doing something that the kids actually kind of want to go and do always, to me, just seems like the best option, rather than sitting doing fucking maths and all that, and I don't want to do all that stuff.
Which is bizarre, like, because I still laugh about this, but one of the episodes of The Apprentice, I worked with an accountant who couldn't count. And, like, I still don't understand the premise. Like, it baffles my brain how someone can say that they are an accountant, yet you can't do mental maths. That would be like asking me, as an actor, what accents can you do, and me not being able to give you 5 accents. Like, that baffles me. I can do it. Most accents. We'll come back to that later.
Australian.
I'll come back to it. You must know this. Have you ever saw my Apprentice VT, which, if you can, insert it, because it is fucking hilarious.
Sound will insert
Basically,
it.
that's what they done to me. They were like, could you give us, like, 5 accents? And I was like, of course I can.
Yeah.
But I worked on this episode and I was like, this guy can't fucking count. I was like, loved him. Kev, you're a great guy. But I was like, am I missing a trick here? I was like, we're taking the gram, we're changing it to a kilogram, we're dividing it, and we're getting a flat rate. We're only trying to build some bow buns. And it was like, as if we were speaking another language. So I do also feel that some degrees are a bit mental. If a degree relies on a computer, I'm like, what's the skill?
Yeah. No, I think there's, I've had this conversation with another guest, but I just think going to university gets drilled into you when you're in school, and it gets made out that it's the be all and end all. I've never went to university or anything, but I just think, it gets drilled into you, and then most people that I know that went to university don't have a career in what they've just spent like 4 or 5 years of their life studying.
I'm actually back at uni now.
Right, okay.
So, like, I would argue on the flip side that, like, I do agree, some people, if you're not choosing the right subject, like, I've got a student who's just chose to do something because, like, don't know what I was going to do, but I genuinely loved uni. Like, I went to drama school, which was, like, very comprehensive. Like, it taught me all, like, the academia of my art, then it taught me all the practical stuff. And I'm actually back at uni now doing, like, a master's in, like, how to teach teachers to teach, which seems a bit mental.
How to teach you.
So I'm basically doing a program on how to teach people how to be a good teacher, which then means long term I could probably add another qualification onto the college. So I might add a postgrad in teaching on, and then I need to be, like, you just need to be a certain amount of level above their qualification to teach it. So me and the deputy principal of the theatre school currently go to uni on a Friday to Stirling Uni, where people are so far unlike me. Like, there's, like, uni lecturers that are there for, like, cooking and cakery. There's, like, people that are there teaching engineering, and then there's me and Charlotte that are like, we teach men's how to act. But I do agree, like, if there is, I do think no one's ever going to take that certificate away from you, but I get, if you're going to uni to do something you don't want to do, don't do it.
Yeah, there's 2 sides to it. I'm not saying that uni's like a waste of time. I just mean for certain people. I think, again, in school, maybe what you're making that decision at 17 years old sometimes. And a lot of the people that I kind of know, there's a girl that I know that made that decision at 17. She wanted to go on and do pharmacy, and she just absolutely hates it. And it's like that, it is a big decision to make at that age when, you're maybe not kind of fully matured yet as well. But I also think there's the other side as well, where if uni fits for you and you enjoy going, you love it, and you're great at it, that's good as well.
I just also think, like, I regularly say this to myself, like, I could have been absolutely, like, chose a subject that you're guaranteed a job at the end, right? I know it's brutal going and studying law. I know it's brutal going and studying pharmacy, right? But you're guaranteed an £80,000 minimum after that. Like, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Like, so I do understand why parents are like, go and be a doctor, go and be a lawyer. Yeah. But see, when people are going to do, like, these random subjects, like, that they'll not have any interest in, like, you could argue that, okay, is it strange to go and study acting? But you can be a teacher, you can be a lot from it. But see, when people are like, I'm going to study psychology, I'm like, how do you know at 17 that you want to be, you want to go and study psychology? What in your adult life or your life experiences have you thought,
Yeah,
I'd
what
be
to do
great at studying psychology. You've probably fucking saw it in somebody's Instagram and thought, she dresses quite cool. She studies psychology. I'm going to go and study it.
Yeah. And with psychology as well, I remember I actually picked that in school because I thought...
what is psychology?
Exactly. But I just thought it was going to be pure fried. Do you know what I mean? I thought me and my pals were going to, I don't know,
dissecting people.
Get a joint and then go into psychology and listen to all this fried stuff and all that. I
teach a wee girl, and I was talking about her acting one night, and I was like, look, I just not believable. I was like, it's far, like, we always use this terminology, it's far too hammy. I'm like, two of the top, like, we'd be like, look, it's not River City, bring it down, bring it down. And she was like, I don't agree with that. And I was like, I don't need you. I don't give a fuck, do it. No. She was like, I mean, I study psychology. And I was like, right. We've done enough of you this evening, my friend. Let's move on. But I'm like, I think she was like, I study myself. And I was like, bit deep for me. Let's just get this
let's move on, man. I know, I don't actually know what psychology is. Fun story, actually, quickly. We had a psychology prelim, obviously, before the exams. And I'm like walking about class. I was not like good at school. Well, see, if I tried, I would have been, but I was a class clown and all that. Just didn't give a fucking high school. And I remember walking by and seeing like the paper, and I was like, shit, is that the prelim? So I take pictures of it and I send it to everybody in my class. And it actually did turn out to be the prelim. Everybody fucking passes it. I still fail.
Are you having a fucking...
Because I had it and I was just like, probably it's not going to be that. I'll just fucking leave it. And everybody on my way looking at everybody pure doing all the answers. And I'm like, I fucking got all use this. I know.
Yeah, if you were clever, you'd have got the answers.
That's it, man. That's it. I'm always thinking outside the box.
I love that.
Right, let's get back. Anyways, fucking enough about me. Let's get back. I don't even know. Talk about psychology. So let's talk about opening the theatre schools then, because that seems like quite a big thing to do. Like, actually going out and buying your own kind of properties for that.
So I mean, it is mental, like, when we break it down, but people probably don't realise, like, it's not as much as a risky business as what people make it. Like, we're a subscription-based business model, right? And I talk about this all the time. I do, like, a wee bit of business coaching with other schools, and, like, it's all a numbers game, right? So if we break this down, we have X amount of people paying this subscription. I know I need to get this through the door. But for me, I'm like, before all of that, you need to make sure the product is brilliant. Like, I love working with those kids. The teachers I've got love working with those kids. And ultimately, like, whether they get a job in telly or whether they don't, they're leaving with, like, productions. We do 2 international trips every 2 years. So they're getting the opportunity to go to LA, to go to New York. They're going to London. They're working with all these actors. So I'm like, the product was there. But when it came to, like, I'm quite anal about, like, is that your brand? Does that speak to you? Does there synergy there? Like, does that align? And it's a word I used a lot on The Apprentices. There's no synergy there and we're not doing it, right? But for me, like, I was hiring these premises and I was like, this is not the brand that I've created. I created a brand that I want to be international. So we have the theatre school group. We've obviously got Theatre School of England, Ireland and Wales that launches next year. But I'm like, this isn't the right place for it. Me going into a primary school in Cambuslang with a janitor who's irate because he needs to work till 9 o'clock does not fit this brand. So I'm like, the kids are getting what they want. The brand's getting what they want in social media, but this isn't following through. So I was like, you need to get your own premises. So the first premises we took on was before COVID, and it was like in Bridgeton, essentially, near the city centre. And I was just like, let's just go back to white until we know what this brand is. And then eventually we kind of figured out, okay, like we'll dissect the colours. And very quickly we outgrew it. So I had been looking for like 4 years to find like a proper HQ. And in order for me to get the college, it had to be ground floor because it needs to be disabled regulated. But trying to find a ground floor unit in the city centre is pretty fucking impossible because everybody wants a ground floor unit in the city centre. So we found the unit we're in now, which is the perfect, we're never moving because the money I spent on it, I am never spending again. But you realise pretty quickly that, like, you owe it to the kids to give them the best quality service. It's like, you know, your clients, you've probably invested in a software that they are getting to maximise it with you. And I'm like, I just don't believe in charging people money and no giving them 100%. And like, that's one thing that does annoy me because these businesses are very quick, like other schools are very quick to comment on how good they are in this. I'm like, in actual fact, you're running out of a scabby church hall where the children are probably picking up infested bugs off the floor. And, you know, where's their safe space? Like, my kids come in and it's like their house. They love it. Like, they feel so at home with it. Parents come in and sit about, like, we've got a breakout area. And I think that it didn't make any sense for me not to have our own premises, and that might come back and bite me in the arse in years to come that I've invested a hell of a lot of money into it.
Nah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I think it's clear to see that you had to go through those kind of stages to make it realise, right, okay, this isn't really what I had imagined and envisioned as well. So, nah, I don't think you'll regret it. Definitely not.
I think we just felt a bit like a pure fraud. I'm like, the social media presence was there, like the kids were getting this, like the shows were great, but I'm like, in actual fact, you're coming and studying in some sort of like primary school. It didn't align with the brand. So, and I think that Light Days was like, doesn't make sense. Like that would be like me selling Light as a premium nightclub and then coming in and putting you in the fucking Savoy carpets. Like you'd be like, well, I've paid for this and that's what I'm getting. So definitely we're moving forward. Like the business kind of side's always been in me. Like, but
you can see that's exactly what I was just about to say. Sorry to interrupt you, because I think, like you said, with the kind of light thing, you could have the Savoy carpet and all that, but that wouldn't be good enough for you. Like you seem like a person that doesn't want to settle for second best pretty much, and it wants to be like top.
Standards need to be like, I always think of like, you know, your brand, and maybe I'm going a bit too like fucking marketing wankerish here, but like your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And like, I know fine well when anybody walks on the street with my uniform on, people will go, oh my God, that's that theatre school. Whereas there is other schools, there is other drama places, but I'm like, I don't believe that they give the full service that we do. And I think I would have been giving the students and the parents a disservice if I was just to continue on running out of these like pop-up places. So we've got a deal in Edinburgh where it's not our own premises, but we work with our performing arts college. Right. So it's a proper state-of-the-art building. Like, this sounds really ridiculous, but we all need to have like sprung floor. So for the longevity of a child's body, you'll know this yourself working as a PT. If I was to ask them to perform certain moves on a floor that isn't sprung, they've got a potential they're going to damage themselves. How the fuck could I live with myself if in 10 years wee Jessie's knees buckled because she's fucking rolling about a bowling club? I'm like, come on, but there is people that still do it. So I think for me that people probably don't actually understand like the mechanics that go into the job.
No, and I know that because I've said this to a few people as well. I think everybody just sees people being successful and just automatically assumes that, you know, it's been all kind of, I don't know, like sunshine and rainbows getting there, but there's a lot obviously behind the scenes that goes into that. So let's talk about the Apprentice, and I don't want to spend kind of too much time on it, but when you then kind of went into the Apprentice, it was for the theatre schools. It was to get the investment.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. Right,
okay. So the Apprentice came about with me in a very strange way. So the school had been running for about 4 years. We now had like our second site open, and during lockdown, I decided to put pen to paper and write my own degree and diploma program, which if I was to ask you to go and write a HND and be a personal trainer, most people would be like, what the fuck? But I literally loved it. I was like thriving. I was like, this is fucking great.
What, doing like writing out?
Basically, you have to write the module, write the assessment guide, submit it to the SQA to be approved. So during lockdown, I spent a lot of time writing my course to be approved by SQA.
Okay.
And in the earlier days, I was told, like, how can you in a college if you're only 20? How can you in a college if you're only 21? I was like, just trust the process. It will happen. And we were going to open the college before COVID, and we didn't because people were applying. But I was like, there's people applying from Aberdeen that I've never met, and I'm potentially about to spend 3 years teaching you. I need to meet you in person and know, one, if you're good, two, if you're a crackpot, and three, if I genuinely think that I'm going to be able to do something with you. So I was like, let's put the college on hold. Lockdown's finished. I've put all the money into the new premises we've opened, and then lo and behold, I get a message on LinkedIn from a lady. Well, funny. It's actually, I mean, it's probably a bit like, which is, people probably don't know the casting process of it, but you apply online. I didn't apply for the show. I say that all the time, but like, basically someone had reached out to me and was like, I saw you at a NatWest speaking event. I used to be on like a little collective thing through the bank where I would go and talk. And this guy was like, you'd be good for The Apprentice. I was like, what's that? I'd never heard of it. I'd never watched it. Like, I'd kind of heard of like what the show was, but I was like, nah, that's not for me. I was like, I want to be an actor, pure. Fuck off. Yeah. I was like, I'm just waiting on the phone call from Coronation Street. So fast forward a couple of months, and I had filmed a pilot. Channel 4 company got in contact with me and was like, we want to film you as one of our 30 under 30, and the winner of this show will get a prize of money. Filmed the pilot, and it's the only way I can describe it is like if you've ever saw the original pilot of The Only Way is Essex before it was on.
I actually have. I spammed them in lockdown for some reason. I just put on the old series, and I think it was that cringe I was hooked on it.
awful.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, it
so
was,
there's this thing which God help if it was ever to surface, right? But we're all like proper, it was awful. And I was like, right, that's not for me. I'm not doing it. The show never got commissioned. Then again, I gets this message. They were like, look, we'd like to meet you in Manchester. And I was like, for what? And they were like, to come on The Apprentice. So that was on the Thursday. I went to Manchester on the Saturday. And I'll never forget, I met my producer, Mandy, and I went in and I was like, oh, shite, man, these people are fucking weirdos. Like, they were literally strange. Like, they were weird.
In what way? Like, just like kind of robotic? Or?
Like, do you know the only way I could describe it is like, I have like business acumen that I am so proud of. And these people were just like Gemma Collins fucking times 10.
No.
I was like, is this kid for real? Like, he's fucking shite. So they put us all in a room and they were like, okay, you're going to stand up and pitch for why Lord Sugar should invest in you. So I was number 7, one of my lucky numbers. Mm-hmm. And I stepped forward and I was like, look, I've won Scotland's Young Scot of the Year. I was like, I've got 3 years experience. I was like, but my advice to Lord Sugar is, if he doesn't come and invest in me now, then someone else is going to. And they were like, right, move through, went through to the next round. And it was one of the actual guys that does the final interviews. And he went, wow, he went, I've not saw someone from Scotland like this in a while. He went, you know, we've never had a Scot in the show in 10 years. And I was like, really? And he was like, no, he was like, I think you've got a great chance. Goes through to the next room and it's this, what I would describe as an arsehole, and Mandy. And he opened my business plan. So the business plan
Mandy,
Mandy is like the legend that is, right? She's like the producer that I'd originally spoke to on the phone.
Right, okay.
So this guy sitting here, he's one of Lord Sugar's advisors. And I took in my business plan, which was for the college. So I was asking Lord Sugar to invest 250 grand for a 50% stake in the college on the premise that he would get me a university partner from London and we would roll this out across the UK. So I goes in, hands off the business plan, and this guy went, you can't pay people that. And I went, what? And he went, you can't pay people that. I said, you can't pay people what? And he went, you're saying that you're going to pay your lecturers between 27 and 32 grand a year. And I was like, I don't know where you're from, my friend. I was like, but if you get yourself up to Scotland, I said, there is an abundance of people that are waiting for a job that don't have a degree. I was like, in fact, do you know what? I was like, you obviously don't have a fucking clue about my industry. And before you know it, I was like, they've just got me.
What, did you say this to him?
To the guy, but I was like, I'm like, who are you talking to? You know? And then they were like, great, you're through to the next round. I was like, shit, you've got me a belter. So moved downstairs and then they filmed that awful first interview which goes out to press. So then that's all you hear for a week. And then basically it gets shortened down to 30 people. So 30 of us go to London and we go through 2 days of workshops in Lord Sugar's Through the Glass watching you. So he's very involved in the process.
Right, okay.
Like I'll say this all the time, but I fucking love Lord Sugar. We've got many a nickname for him. Alan, Sugar Tits, call him what you want.
Sugar Tits.
Like I love him. He is such an inspiration in business and he watches everything. So you go in and I had to stand up with a blank tissue box and pitch it to the show and say why my tissue box is so different. And then after that, you get put in a group and some of the Gemma Collins people are still there, might I add, pure fighting for airtime. Yep. I was like that, wow. And English people are very confident, as you know. So I kind of felt a wee bit out my depth where I was like, look, this isn't for me. This kid here is 19. He's trying to have a square go with me and his numbers are wrong. So I was just like that. This isn't for me, guys. I was like, look, so finished that day. They've called me back down once more and basically went through every single bit of my business and made sure that the numbers were correct. And I was like, shit, we're pretty far down the line here. So we're going to give you a call on Paddy's Day. And we were just talking about this off camera, but it's a good Catholic boy. Paddy's Day's got a certain correlation
to it. It does, man. It's always a mad one.
Well, it wasn't for me. I was actually doing a show at the SEC and I was like, oh, she's phoning me tomorrow. I was like, to tell me if I'm joining this fucking show. That I still wouldn't have gave it much thought. So Paddy's Day comes and she was like, hi, can we call you at 9 a.m. tomorrow? And I thought, well, I must be in if they're phoning me first. So I was like, I'm going to come into work late today. Answered the phone and another producer was like, Reece, unfortunately, you're going to have to pack your case and spend your summer in London. And I was like, look, can I book in a wee call with you? I was like, because I don't really understand the logistics of this. I was like, don't really understand what it is you're offering me. Long story short is they were like, we'd like you to be in the show as our first Scot in 10 years. You'll need to move to London for 4 months. No phone, no contact with the outside world. And I was like, shit, I kind of need to go and fucking sort my business out and sort my life out. So long story short, I decided to do the show after like maybe having a lot of reservations. I originally wasn't going to do it because I was taking the kids to New York and they moved the filming schedule in order for me to do it. So I was like, fuck, these cunts are invested here. Like, I'm going to get this cash. So when the first few weeks was just like brutal, you've no phone, you've no contact with the outside world, and I was in isolation. So they gave me a burner phone, like with a tenner on it.
Your boys ran out his credit on his phone.
I'm here texting people, phone me back.
Yeah.
It was mortifying.
Man's ran out of top up, man.
So I just remember saying to production, like, you've gave me a tenner top up on a phone. Like, how are you expecting me to live? Okay, I was in a fucking swanky hotel in West London, but I wasn't allowed to leave because of my isolation. So
what do you mean isolation as?
So there's a certain amount of rules when you join a BBC show where basically I started working for them 2.5 weeks before I started shooting the show. Many a reason is they take your phone off you. And the most interesting one I'll let you know of, because you'll not believe this. We're all in a confined space. So we're all in central London in hotels. But how could we have connected otherwise?
I don't know.
Fucking we could all met each other on Tinder or anything like that. Yeah. So that's why they take their phones off you. In case you're thinking of the wide one like that, hi, I'm in here, and then you meet up. So all of us get our phone removed as soon as we land there, and then you get given a burner phone with no access to the internet in case you try and make connections with people that are on the show.
Right, okay.
Also, it's in case you fucking go tonto and then decide you're not doing it. So you've got that time in there where you're like psychiatrists, there's doctors that are with you a lot of the time.
It seems very intense. That's what I was going to say.
And like, it's not for the faint-hearted. Like with it, people might think that I run about fucking, okay, I got to go to the Caribbean, I got to go to Dubai, and people might think that's great, but I'm like, mentally, you need to be fucking strong to do that show.
Yeah. And 100%. I think anybody's daft that says that you don't need to be, or think, oh, he's good at lucky, he's just on the Apprentice. So like, no, you've worked hard to get there. But it's not as if it's like, again, sunshine and rainbows when you're filming it. It's going to be fucking hard work. And having that pressure there as well of knowing that fucking millions of people are watching you.
10.2 million people every Thursday night watch that. We were the biggest watched show last year. Crazy. We bet Strictly and bet the Eurovision.
I know the Apprentice is always massive, man. Massive.
I mean, I wouldn't thank you for watching it, to tell you the truth.
I like the Apprentice.
I think what I learned very quickly on the show that was like, I take business very serious, and there was people still there in that final that didn't, but I loved my experience. I had a fucking roaring time, but we film 100 hours of telly for one episode. So there's a lot that goes in that you don't see. So I might think that me and you having a scuffle over a fucking bow bun is going to be the highlight of the episode, but they always need to work back the way. So I would say it would be a much better show if it wasn't edited the way it is, because you don't see half of what goes on. And it's just because we've only got an hour. But I loved my experience on it. I had a great time. I massively respect Lord Sugar. I fucking love Karen Brady. She is what you call a cheeky, excuse my next word, but like, I'm like, she's fucking earned her stripes to be cheeky. Like, and people are like, she's rude, she's condescending. I'm like, she is rude, she is condescending, she has a time of the past, but we don't see things like that on telly anymore because we're institutionalized that everyone needs to be like, you know, okay, she's a bit on the cusp of what, but like, we do need to live in a world where we're kind, but she still gets away with not being so kind. And
I respect her, man. I think she just, whenever I've watched her, I just think she's like a boss woman. You know what I mean? She's like fucking on her shit.
And I forget one day, she said to me in Antigua, so we went to the Caribbean for episode 1, which was unreal. Like,
amazing.
Wish I could tell my pals, but I don't have the phone. So I'm like standing on a fucking beach. This is great. Somebody want to take a photo of me.
Send a postcard.
Like, somebody want to take a photo of me in my burner phone. So I remember she said to me, so on the first episode, I'd got the highest sales, which is pretty rare for a man to get that, because it's always the females that win. And she said to me, just totally, she went, looked me up and she went, I never knew Scottish people had style and could sell. And I went, what do you mean? And she went, well, your suit's quite flattering. And I went, Karen, I said, babes, I went, I'm here for the long run. I said, me and you are going to have some season. She was like, don't call me babes and don't click your finger to me. And I was like, oh, right, sorry.
Oh, shit. I would have shit myself.
She is so sound. And I think when you set that tone of, you'll know for her, like, whereas some of the other people were pure scared around her. But I loved my time in the show. I'm so glad I done it. But I don't think people realise, like, every week I would wake up during transmission, and during transmissions when we were on air. So we filmed it 13 months before it went live. So I've filmed it, came home, sitting with this big fucking secret that I filmed a show. Nobody knows. And then I go on holiday for New Year's Eve, and the Scottish Sun leak it 6 days before it's supposed to come out that I'm going to be in the show. And I was like, how the fuck do they know? Basically, someone from production had sent it by accident.
Right, okay.
6 days early. So
did you get shit for that? Nah, but I mean, it's not your fault.
It's not my fault, but like, it's just because you're not giving your narrative, which is a common denominator through this process. because you're not giving your narrative, they take their narrative. So example being, like, rather than me saying, I'm Reece and this is what I own, they just went on my Instagram and decided their opinion on me. And
are you talking about the press here?
Aye, so like, this is before our names are even announced. So what should happen is we should do a press day and we should all say, hi, my name's Reece, this is why I'm on the show. But because we got leaked early, what happened was they basically took photos from our Instagram and made up what they wanted about us. So we were called the Insta Apprentice. They only got 6 of us, which is funny that into the 6 were the most followers. So you'd think maybe somebody above had leaked that. So they've took this god awful photo of me for like Tenerife 2 years ago.
I need to see this.
It's tragic.
Is it bad?
I've got these like striped shorts on, right? So I'm in Dubai. Mom's like, it's terrible, Reece. She's like, they've took a photo of you. And I'm like, they were like the candy print shots. I was like, what? Yeah. I've been down there doing press shots with this belter of a new suit from Slater's, and they went on my Instagram and took that. But I think that just kind of set the tone of like, you can't take yourself too serious. They're going to take the piss out you. And on a show like that, like any sort of business camaraderie I had, you need to kind of let it go. But as the kind of weeks go on, like, it's fucking hard. Every day you wake up and I'm like, what's today's story?
Yeah. No, there's a lot of pressure on you. And that's interesting hearing about the kind of negative side from the press. I've not actually spoke to anybody about this, and you have had a lot of negativity. Let's just say.
I'm gonna say something on that, right? I actually was the bookies' favourite to win for the full 7 weeks that I was on air. Yet every single week, the Scottish press ripped me a new arsehole. Because the Scottish press don't want to see Scottish people succeed. Yeah. The Scottish press also paid for a fucking private investigator to analyse my performance every week. What? And it was like this, you probably find him on LinkedIn, but it was this fucking creep, as I would call, right? And he was basically studying my body language and was trying to put a case forward that I'd won. So in one angle, I've got like this paper that's like, we know you've won, tell us you've won, otherwise we're going to leak it. And in the other angle, you've got people like, I know you got fired this week. And I'm like, so you're all over the place. So how it works is like on a Monday, we have a call and we have like our own press agents that deal with like, we don't speak the full time. I would never have spoke to a journalist. I still don't speak to journalists. Like I would always go through my agent. But they don't even need to talk to you. These people, they're just making articles up saying that you've said it and that's legal, apparently. Yeah. So might I add, there was this article that came out where basically they'd said they'd spoke to my mum. Now, my mum doesn't talk to any cunt. You fucking struggle to get her to answer the phone to you unless you phone at 9 times. She's like, sorry, I was doing the washing. Yeah. So I'm like, this guy basically said that he'd spoke to my mum, quoted her, which was factually incorrect, and you've just to go, oh, well, it's the sun, so you just need to do it. So I'm like...
And people believe it?
Well, I think like it takes a certain amount of person to believe it, right? Like, again, using Debbie and my mum as an example, my mum reads the fucking front page and makes the rest up, and Sharon from Les Mahego probably does the same. But like anybody with a brain knows that like press is very calculated and it's all set out by someone. So
there's a lot of bullshit out there. There's so much fake kind of news and fake media. Obviously, I won't get purely too fried about it and talk about like A-list Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, but I do think there's so much kind of fake articles, and it's very interesting to be able to sit down and speak to somebody like yourself who's been at the forefront of negativity like that. Because again, when negative articles come out and there's hundreds of them, people are just going to believe it and take that as fact without actually hearing your kind of side of things.
And it's also hard because you're not allowed to talk. So by law, I'm signed in an embargo to say I am not allowed to speak to press. So I'll never forget in one particular episode, I was like, what the fuck? I'm sitting here getting made out as if I've called someone something on an episode. Basically, I said to one of the boys, I was like, you're shite, you'd be better working from home, and you, my friend, you're just here waiting on the ride to ride Sugar Airlines. The article the next day was, Donnelly abuses two co-stars, belittles them, and I'm like, well, in actual fact, I was told by a producer to say that. So, because, in all fairness, West Ham were playing that night and we were in a hurry because Karen Brady had to get out of the fucking studio. Okay. So I'm like, if you look at the back end of it, that's really not what happened. But we are obviously institutionalized to be like, don't talk. So I do think that what I have really enjoyed is like, I've told my own story. I don't need to, keep reminding people of it. But like, I will say this of like, just don't believe what you read in the papers. Like Laura Anderson's another example of a Scottish person that like, that girl was ripped apart because she announced that she was pregnant. There was posts in one of these Scottish papers saying what a terrible mum she would be 2 days after she'd announced that she was pregnant. I'm like,
just disgusting.
It's disgusting.
Man. I know it is. Honestly, I've always fucking hated like the news and newspapers and journalists and just that is actually disgusting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, mate. Like, but then I do think, in all fairness, right? Like, I mean, it's ridiculous, right? But you just choose, like, I need the press to tell my stories, right? Like, I'm no like leaking things to it, but like the business events that we are doing, like, we need to work with press, so we only work with one title. So I work with the Herald. It's a very business driven paper. I'm not interested in working with the rags, but they will go and pick that story up, twist it into what they want. So like, I had announced something at the start of the year that basically for 6 years we were trying to hit this £1 million turnover, and we hit it. And the Herald did this amazing piece on the school. That other paper took it and was like, axed Apprentice. And I was like, let's just refine that, my friends. I was like, because let me tell you, I could have still been there if I wanted to be. So it's just interesting, but I think that they also need to make money, and I think that you can only sympathise with that, of like being like, look, it's not that deep. Do you know what I mean? They're no saying that you've hurt someone, that you've done this, and I think that is the thing I do hang on to. I'm like, it's really not that deep, is it? But
it could go that deep though, because I feel like whenever you're seeing articles like that, you're only really seeing the tip of the iceberg. You don't know everything else that's coming with it. I think the most challenging thing personally for me, if that was me in that situation, would have been, like you said, having my kind of character bashed constantly, and you can't actually defend yourself at all.
So I still talk about this and I'll laugh about it, right? But this whole shit that, like, you know, like we were drunk on a flight. Tom Skinner is one of the most notable persons that's came off of The Apprentice. And Tom Skinner will tell you, and will not mind me saying this, they were absolutely steaming on the way to South Africa. So I'm like, if this story would have surfaced to any sort of factual evidence, I'm like, roll the tapes. Let me see me pissed on a flight. Like, because I just think it's absolutely ridiculous. But what we need to think of is that's a decoy of like other things that happen on a show. But like, you know, I've made this very clear from day one. Like, I've told everyone my story. I was unwell. I left the show. I don't need to go into like anything more than that. You don't say to someone, why were you off last week? Unwell. But what they need from that is they want me to go in and say, well, actually, this is what happened, and it's at this person's fault, which it's not in my character to do. But I do think that like the story that they decided to go with is a bit fucking ridiculous, because we sit in between two chaperones. So I'm like,
well, but let's talk about that. Let's rewind a wee bit, because I'm sure everybody knows listening into this, but if you're listening in and you don't know about this, the articles everywhere is you get steaming on a flight to Dubai and you get kicked off, and that was you off for the series. So how... Sorry,
the rumour actually was that I didn't make it to Dubai.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
Fucking hilarious. But,
so how did those stories come out then?
So you basically get given an option of what's going out. So I did all my exit chats on the Tuesday. So we had told everyone I was leaving, blah, 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 blah. It was all done. And then on the Thursday at 9:15, I was watching the final episode with my family. And the reason why that story went out was because of the edit. So what should have happened on that edit is someone should have said, look, as you guys all know, Reece was unwell during this task and wasn't able to permit to finish. It's the rules of your contract. If you miss an episode, you're out. You can miss one day. You can't miss a full task. It's no Lord Sugar's decision. It's BBC Business. That is their decision. But instead what happened was they didn't address that on air. So then it left so much of like, what happened to this guy? And then before you know it, within 15 minutes, there was two options I was basically told that was going out. I'm not going to even say the other one because it's 10 times worse. But I was like, run what you want. I was like, we know what's true. And I was told I wasn't allowed to speak to press for a week. And I was like, I'm going on live telly tomorrow.
Fuck you.
So I literally phoned up BBC Scotland and I was like, I'm coming in tomorrow to do a live interview. And there was something like, they always laugh at this story because I did it on a show that isn't very well known, right? And I think there was something like 1.8 million people tuned in on the Saturday night to watch the show.
Just to hear what you had to say.
Hear what I had to say. And I'm like, it's really not that deep. But I do think like now in the work that I do, it makes it a wee bit more interesting. Like people probably remember me as that, even though it's not true. But I'm like, listen, it's like, for me, I'm a very strong person. It's not that deep. It was brutal because people look at you in a perspective of like, is that true? But I'm like, you know what, it's no, so I can hold my head high and move on.
No, you can, mate, and I was just about to say that. You do have a very strong character, because even when you spoke about dealing with it there, it was just like, right, okay, fuck it, you can post what you want, don't care, I know the truth, so that doesn't matter.
And one of the PR women that I worked with at the time, she was like, Reece, she was like, we are genuinely really worried about your mental health. She was like, would you like us to come and get you from Scotland and check you into somewhere in London? And I was like, Jenny, I don't know if I'm missing the trick here, babe. I was like, listen, it's not that deep. I was like, the papers are running something that isn't true. I was like, I know it's not true. You know it's not true. I was like, what's the big deal? And she was like, right. She was like, well, that's kind of all I needed to hear. She was like, but I mean, if that would have happened to anybody else in that show, it would have been a very different situation. And we would have probably we could have been in a Caroline Flack situation. And I'm like, I am very grateful for that. But I do think some of these media need to take a wee bit of ownership of why we do have people in the situations that we have after these shows, because they're responsible for it. They are totally responsible for it.
100%, like you said, like Caroline Flack, or there's been a few quite in Love Island.
Such a shame, and I'm like, but you, like, no one ever prepares you for, like, and I always say this without sounding like a dick, but no one will ever prepare you for that day after your episode, because it, like, I remember going to Marks and Spencer's and I literally couldn't move. It was like Old Woman Central, like, and I'm like, it's not that people are being rude, but they just want to know your story, and I'm like, and I don't feel that these shows protect you enough for the welfare. Like, okay, we had a welfare team, but I'm like, you phone me when shit hits the fan. You don't give me tools and mechanisms to help
and
me.
then you phone and say, is everything okay? Because obviously I was chatting to you that Anton was on the podcast, and he was saying that to me, sorry, during it. He was saying, asked him the question, how do you kind of adjust to that? Going in, you're kind of a nobody in Love Island. You've got no contact with the outside world, etc. You come out and you're mega famous, and he's like, mate, you just kind of need to deal with it. Like, you've got no real kind of support systems or networks there as well, and must be really, really hard to deal with. And you're lucky that you are a strong character, because there is people that aren't as strong, obviously, that it's going to get to them.
I think as well as it's like, there's other people on that show this year that I actually don't think should have been on air. Like, you wake up every day and it's like, okay, like, I had a fucking blast. I loved filming it. I've met pals for life. Like, literally, some of the people for that show will be like front and center at my wedding, right? And I'm like, they are unreal people, but I do think that you need to look after yourself and you need to look after your pals. And I'm like, with the six of us, like, there's like 6 of us that are pals, right? Really, really close. We call ourselves the Huxley crew, because that was the gaff we stayed in. But like, without us having each other, you could be pretty fucked. And there's probably some people from those 18 that have maybe fell through the net and maybe don't have a friendship group. But every one of us at every point had a big press story over our head. And yous in Scotland probably just see me, but like, you know, some of those girls had naked photos that were going to be in front pages of papers. Some of them had, you know, exes that were telling stories. Some of them had like brothers that had come out, like, and it's like, so although in Scotland it seems mad, but like everybody kind of gets it. But I think the only people we had during that was ourselves to like look after each other. But I think, like, to kind of summarize it, I fucking loved my time on it. I'm so grateful for it. And I do also think, like, I kind of get 10 million people watching me a Thursday night and they'll get a bit of heat. It's like, that's not on it. Yeah,
it's natural. It's going to come with it. Now let's move on then from The Apprentice. So you come off The Apprentice. What was the kind of game plan? What was the kind of negativity after The Apprentice launch? Did it affect your business now?
No, I would say I had a really positive time. Like, other than that final episode where, like, every week, like, I mean, I've said this, but I was the bookies' favourite every week. So like, it was like every national press was like, we know he's won, tell us he's won, try and figure out this. And you probably know the narrative of The Apprentice, but the more they pull you in the boardroom, they're trying to basically build up a story so that they can conjure you up to winning. I will say this with it sounding like an arsehole, but I probably would have won the show had I not have left. Like, or I would have certainly been in the top 2, because what Lord Sugar looks for is he looks for someone with business acumen. And I think that he gets it. He's no daft. And like, when you are surrounded with some people that are there for the 5 minutes of fame, and I definitely think after that, I was like, how can I maximize this? So we're working, doing what I do now. I do a lot more TV presenting. I'm doing like a documentary, but I think I've found it very cool to just own your own story. Like, I found out during the show, like, a bit more of a story. Basically, I have a half brother who is in prison, and I'm like, that's a story that I need to go and explore through a documentary. So I think that you find out a lot about yourself in that.
Sorry, could I interrupt you? You didn't know you had a brother?
So I did know I had a brother, but didn't know the extent of like what basically the story was that came out, right? But what I will say on it is that, like, the word I would use is like, it's a very interesting subject to be on, to almost live your life through a media show, which might seem mental because people are like, fuck's sake, you were on The Apprentice for 7 weeks, right? But you learn a lot about yourself during that time. And what I learned is I was like, I love my business, but I've actually probably gave it far too much over the past 5-6 years. And I was like, what do I want? So very quickly, I was like, well, I would like to put myself in much more of a business space. I'm 26. I've earned my stripes in business. So very quickly, I was like, I want to kind of be known in that business expert field. So you probably saw, but I do a bit more now of like going on panel shows, talking about business, maybe giving people other advice. I host like business events, but that's where I see it going. Is that I would be lying if I said that I'm not going to be back on telly soon in some sort of other format. But I just think the wave that gives you, it's like a buzz. It is a buzz where you're like, wow, I'm elevating my own brand, my personal brand, my business's brand on a nationwide scale. So coming off the show gives you like a platform where you're like, okay, what am I doing with this? And a lot of people don't use it, but for us, we've now decided that we're going to franchise the business out. So we're going to open England, Ireland and Wales. I'm probably going to have to relocate where I live just to make sure that surfaces a bit more. But just in the past kind of 6 months, I've just found like a lot more like shit comes to you. Like it's class. Like I've made this no secret, but like, you know, if I was to tell you last year that I was in the mix to be in Dancer on Ice this year, I'm like, it's mental. Like, and it's these sort of things that like you just don't think is ever going to happen. So I think that like all of those negatives of like fucking Bobby the journalist at the Sun, I'm like, it's really not that deep because the positives that have came from this far outweigh that. So where we're kind of going now is I spend a lot of time still working with young people. Like I do a lot of schools tours. So I go in and work with like primary schools, high schools. I do a lot of talks with like business students because I'm like, I just don't like the idea that people think that, I'll wait on that to pass. Yeah. I just don't like the idea that like young people think that, again, you need to go to uni or you need to have this idea of, you know what you're doing. So I work with like Young Enterprise Scotland, where I go around all the schools and talk to like 5th and 6th year students. A lot of them like make products and sell it back to us. We might take it on. So it's a very, like I have a very different life after the show. Like it's so different. So like, as I said yesterday, I was down doing a TV show in London, which was unreal, but I'm like, would that have happened had I wouldn't have been the Scottish guy for The Apprentice? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's opened up a lot of kind of doors and opportunities, but I wouldn't obviously just credit it down to being in The Apprentice.
No,
it's
right,
down to obviously you and your hard work as well. What about TV? Is that something in the, as in the acting kind of side of things, is that something that you want to do more of? You are going to do more of?
I'm definitely going to do more telly. Like that's no secret. I think that probably everybody kind of knows what I'm up to at the moment. So, we work in phases, and it sounds, again, this is me putting like the PR hat back on, right? But like we work in phases, and I'm still very much in the business phase at the moment. But like I think where it comes with it is like it's a career, and like I need to fucking graft for it. Like I would love nothing more to be doing more TV and radio in Scotland, like which I am getting there with, but that takes time. Like any job in telly doesn't just happen overnight. It's like I've been working on a show since February, and like still we're so close to the commission going ahead, but like you have to film a pilot, you need to go and get an editor, you need to get a director, you need to get a producer. So I'm working on a show now that's very like personal. It tells a story that I'm like, this is class. I go on a bit of a journey to find out what this life is like, which will be great for me. And then after that, like just riding the wave. You don't know what's going to come in. Like it's class. Like as I said, it's fucking so random the shit that comes in. Like I had a phone call last week that was like, so I'm going to be doing like one of the debates in a couple of weeks on Good Morning Britain. But just putting yourself in that space of being like, right, I'm a bit more than just a business owner now, and I need to get comfortable with that because I could go, shit, I'm not doing that. Whereas I'm like, no, let's just fucking ride the wave of life and see what happens.
100%. Yeah, I think you strike me as somebody that just has no fear, and you'll say yes to pretty much anything. And I'm also somebody that's very, very kind of similar like that as well. That is also one of the reasons I actually wanted to ask you about the acting. So this is going to be, if anybody's listening in and maybe wants to do acting, they will be able to obviously, you know, get some tips and that off you. But coming from a personal standpoint, right, I come to you and I'm being like, Reece, I want to do TV. What would you do? How? And I've never done acting before. And the reason that I actually texted you was, you know, Keon.
Love Keon.
What a guy.
Love Keon.
He is my bro, by the way.
I love Keon.
He's my bro.
I teach Keon's pal, Aaron, but like, I swear to God, see if I could have Keon at that school every day, I would. He is the loveliest boy. His mum is such an angel, man.
Everybody keeps saying this. I need to meet her. I know.
Wait till you meet Michelle. She's
everybody keeps saying I need to meet her. She actually sent me a voice note the other day off of his Instagram. I was like, Mummy, Crampsy's in the fucking building, man. But
so good.
Yeah, Keon, I met Keon. I was doing something with Black Rooster and I met him for the first time. See that way, you've just kind of clicked with somebody, man. He's some boy, so we're close in that now. But he obviously told me about you on that day in the Black Rooster, and I was saying, bro, I've always wanted to do acting, and again, not because I would say it was easy, but I've got a lot of experience now, I think, of actual working with brands, and even like, I don't know if you've seen, but I've done adverts with like Branston, like Branston Pickles and all that. And just stuff like that, like I feel like I've got like that kind of almost certain background, but I've just always been like, I don't know, I just fancied that. But this isn't me asking you for a job, by the way. It's just like, how would you go about it?
Right, so like people focus on the job before they focus on getting good, right? And like there's a method, there's a technique, you need to go and start attending an acting class or go and start training in acting. It's like, you know, that would be like you coming to me and saying, I want to be a bodybuilder, and me saying to you, right, there's a competition on Friday.
Yep.
Like, you need to put the graft in. And I think that's what a lot of people don't see in these days. Like, I still need to self-tape. Like, I still self-tape. I'll just say this, right? I had an audition about 7 weeks ago for Emmerdale, and I was like, this is it. Like, the boy's back on screen. So I've like that to everyone. You're in tonight, help me with the lines. You're doing the self-tape. You're away to go and figure out something that fits this character. Didn't get the part, but I'm like, you need to put a lot of work in. So like, you need to really figure out like what type of character you're going to play. Start working under those lived circumstances. We would get you in the studio. We would give you like example scripts. We would give you notes. We would then get you on camera. Working on screen and working off screen is very different. I'd then maybe look at the difference between TV and film, TV and commercial. It's all different styles of acting. It's like, you know, probably the technique you would use to run on a treadmill and the technique you use to run on footpaths, very different. It's exact same for us. And there's a lot of techniques that need to be taught. So when that's done, then I would say try and find yourself an agent that's going to put you up for work. Finding an agent in acting is very hard because so many of them talk shit, unfortunately. So many of them are like what we would call a bum a fuck, and they literally promise you the world. So still to this day, like even in my industry, like I've still not signed with like that mother agent after the show because I genuinely feel like so much of them just talk shit.
Yeah, and they're hard to come by. And that's why I wanted to ask you that question originally, because I know that there's so much that goes into it. Again, I'm not naive and think, oh, I could just be an actor. Like that's what I wanted to see, that actual kind of process of going into it as well. Because I just think, like yourself, I've always been one of these guys kind of, maybe more so recently over the past few years, where if there is opportunities, I'm like, do you know what, fuck it. Because see, a few years ago, I would have been like that, oh, there's no way I could go and do an acting class. Like people might think I'm a pure gimp or a loser. And see, now I'm just like, bro, I couldn't give a fuck. Like, see if I want to go and do it. And without sounding cocky, I feel like I'm one of these people, see when I just put my mind into something, I'm going to fucking work hard and it's going to fucking work. Do you know what I mean?
We always talk about this, right? But I have like what you would call like, she is my agent. She's so much more than anything. Like she fucking literally organised my life, right? So Pam does like everything for me, from like my press, my PR, my bookings, everything. And she said to me the other day, she went, "You just so unapologetically you." And I went, "You're fucking right, Am." I'm like, I think when you've done what you've earned your stripes to be where you've been, like, you know, being you is enough. And I always say that. I'm like that. I love the person that I have become. I've did all the groundwork, I've read all the books, I've fucking put the graft in. I'm like, and that's probably like yourself, where you're like, I think now you just want to do what you want to do. And I think like probably when you were younger, you were like, can I do that? That's the fear. Like still, I'm like, I jogged with her the other day and I was like, absolutely not. And she was like, Reece. And I was like, nah. I was like, I'm not doing that on air. And then she was like, right, let's go over yourself. And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. And I think you just get to an age or like a point in your life where you're like, do you know what? Fuck it. It's not that deep.
Exactly.
It's not that deep.
It's not that deep, man.
That's a quote that I love to say. I probably said it about 10 times. Like we always use it in the office. Like, see if somebody's like, someone's phoned in sick, and I'm like, is it that deep? No.
Yeah. No, 100%. No. And I think with the acting side of things, I don't know, man. I can just
let's get a session booked.
Do you think right? Here's a question. Do you think I've got the fucking?
Do you know what you sound like? One of these mental moths that bring their wains to me at 2.5 years old and said, "Do you think she's got something?" I'm like, "Well, she can't speak yet."
Look at me.
Do you know what? You have got it. I'm telling you. Yes. I can tell from just looking at you. You're ready for the naming lights.
Nah, but I don't necessarily mean that. But you will look at people though, and you're like, bro, you've got fucking no chance in that.
No, I don't agree with that. Now, honestly, now I'm like, some people that get the jobs, I'm like, wow, I wouldn't have cast you.
Right, okay.
And like, I do think the world that we live in, like, right, years ago, if you were an actor, you were a very like, not everyday looking person. The people that's getting the jobs now are the people that look like everyday looking people.
Yeah, they are. Because I was always so bad about that. And I'm like, am I too ugly to be on TV and filming?
Like, do you know what's quite interesting? Like, I've been told before, like, I have like my own teeth, believe it or not. People like to think that I've got fucking veneers. But I auditioned for a job and they were like, "Oh, would you be willing to take your veneers out for the job?" And I was like, "I don't fucking have veneers." And I was like, "Got a bit of whitening on them." That's about it. And they were like, "Oh, they just look a bit too put together." And I was like, fucking hell.
That's like, just because you're Scottish with an actual nice set of teeth. It's very rare in this country.
So no, I definitely think that there's a lot of like exciting things happening in the acting industry in Scotland, and I don't think there's any right age to start it. Like every year people drop it. Like the older that you get is the better place to be as an actor because there's less and less people that do it.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, people.
There you
Don
go.
X Donnelly.
There you go.
Adam and Reece Donnelly.
So-
We're going to do a TV show and I'm going to be fucking front and centre of that shit, man. In my dreams.
If you see the big man in River City in a couple of years, you'll organise the show.
They reply back to my DM. I cannot believe I DM'd them that. Do you need an actor? Well, I mate, I jump on the morning.
You free the morning, jump down.
Honestly. Now listen, Reece, thank you so much for coming on, mate. I really appreciate it. I had an amazing conversation. I think with yourself, it was good to kind of dive deeper into your business brain, because you do have a very, very... I cannot believe you're 26, mate, genuinely. Not because you look 45, but no, just because like you're only a few years older than me, but you've already achieved so much, and mate, you're top of the game, man.
Thank you so much for having us on, and I look forward to hearing who's in next.
Yes, thank you, my man. Appreciate it. Cheers, bro.
Cheers.